they are based in the state in general. The reason for me, I'm most interested in like self-ownership and the non-aggression principle. And the reason I'm active with CopBlock is because I think it's a very timely issue, and I view police as sort of the teeth of the state. And the state is just a bad idea. It's the idea that some external person has authority, based on their title or based on their place of employment. So that subsists by peddling this fear, and people are a lot of folks allow for these things. So this one article that Police Mag recently ran, and I'm not a sovereign citizen. I do agree with some of their end goals in that you own yourself, but I don't necessarily agree with the means, because they try to like navigate this paperwork system and prove by government documents that they're free. But to each their own. But Police Mag ran this article about sovereign citizens, saying sovereigns, and this is just an excerpt, sovereigns often video record interactions with law enforcement in hopes of intimidating officers to not enforce the law. Some of these are live streamed, and then it says they don't believe in legitimacy of government or validity of laws. This is completely different than a typical criminal. And then they said, or they do things that the average American citizen has accepted as a proper role of government. So, they're trying to use fear and saying, hey, they don't recognize your authority, so they're, in the wrong. And again, this is claimed authority. You don't have to grant these clowns any authority. And and again, I said language is important before, so I hear some folks even here at Liberty Forum, using words like citizen. What does a citizen imply? Like you're subservient to somebody else, that there's a government over you, that you are obliged to follow their dictates? I would encourage you instead just to recognize, again, that you own yourself. And this, and not to point to a piece of paper, such as the Constitution or anything for your rights, because if you do that, then what does that mean? Somebody who's born in North Korea or Mexico doesn't have the same rights as you or I? Like, I don't think that's the case. And there's obviously a lot of historical evidence we could point to societies, areas that existed for a long while that existed absent this course of monopoly of protection. And I'm definitely not an expert as like some of these other folks who spend their lives delving into these things are, but I'll just mention a few real quick if you want to look more into it. There's Celtic Ireland from the 7th to 17th century, Icelandic Commonwealth 10th to 13th century. There's a lot of trade going on in between, folks who people would think would have a lot of disagreements with, but they recognize the value of these trade and stuff like that. So, and from that, law, real law, what I would say is rule of law emerged from the bottom up. They were based on like customs, and they were easy to understand for everybody, and a lot of the punishments for breach contracts dealt with ostracism. They dealt with reputation, and if you wronged somebody, you didn't make it right, a lot of people wouldn't do business with you. So to take that example down to like our communities today, like I know if Kate stole from me and she didn't make right, I'm gonna be like, Kate, you gotta make right, and I'd work to make it public until she did. And if Evan like ran a grocery store, he might say, hey, Kate, I'm not gonna sell your groceries because I know you did this. And then as we each, instead of having a one-size-fits-all sort of big brother looking and enforcing law, we all have eyes on each other. So it's essentially flattening that hierarchy down. And instead of looking to a course of monopoly to try to do this. Other examples, more recent, include like homeowners associations. I know there's pros and cons, but since in the past half century have grown from like 500 in number to over 1/3 in number. And these are, again, like voluntary contracts people step into. They agree to some norms and rules. And if they, obviously if they don't want to, they can move away, they can vote with their feet. And it's much easier to do that on a smaller scale than to like say vote like with your feet over thousands of miles. And there's the American Arbitration Association that, founded in 1926. Last year had almost over 90,000 cases settled. So these are dispute resolution nonprofits that adjudicate disputes outside of this top-down court system. And I should touch on the court system real quick, because what we have today in the U.S. is based sort of on mostly, on the English court system, how that developed. And that used to be, there used to be competition between different court systems. If we had a disagreement, we could go, to hear to different arbitrators, different court systems. And at one time, you know, if an employee of the Crown happened to be a witness to what happened, I could then ask them to come speak on my, you know, to share what they've seen or whatever, and then I would have to compensate them for their time. So it didn't take long for the Crown to see that, you know, this could be a source of revenue. So first they started mandating that one of their agents had to be at every court proceeding, and then they said, hey, we could make, you know, we could just make more money if we had our own court system and we outlawed all the other ones. So when that was going on, they said if anybody else continues to go to these other courts, you know, you're going to be thrown in a cage for your life. And so that's essentially how the court system was adopted. It's just this centralized process. And to think that a person or group of people have the knowledge to codify law is, you know, pretty ludicrous. I think, and if this sounds far-fetched, I mean, think about most of your interactions during the day, during your life. You know, 99.9% of your interactions are in a state of what could be called anarchy, because there is no contract signed with people. It's essentially, you know, a mutual interaction or just a neutral interaction, you know, and it's not something fearful. A criminal, like a common street criminal, might come up to you and say, give me your money. They know that's not right. They know they don't have a right to your money. They don't say, I'll meet you here next week and you better bring me the money. But yet that's what police employees and the, you know, and do. They say, you owe us this money or else. And so this is, again, just to demonstrate the perverse incentives. A few resources I'll point to real quick if y'all want to look more into this, and then I'll get into a couple other things. There's obviously there's Orders of Individuals, Anarchism that Rothbard wrote, Not So Wild Wild West by Hill and Anderson, Polycentric Legal Order by Randy Barnett, Anarchy in the Law is one of my favorite by Ed String. It's a collection of essays. A lot of folks weighing in on this stuff. And then another real good thinker on this subject is Bruce Benson, who's the chair of the econ department down in University of Florida, Tallahassee. And he's